Hello, my bookish besties. Thank you for clicking on today's video. I love and appreciate you. Today's video is going to be a reading wrap-up for September. I read 18 books last month. One of them was a short story, though, so does that really count? Maybe not, but I'm counting it to feel more accomplished. Okay. Can I just say I'm so proud of how much I read last month because it was my first month back in college. And I managed to read just much in the summer, or I managed to read just much last month as I did in the summer months, even with school and everything. So that was shocking, but I'm proud of myself. The first week of school was rough. I only finished one book that entire week, but then I got used to the new schedule and I got back on my reading grind and everything is good and dandy. Woohoo! Okay, so let's just get into the video. Okay, the first genre we're going to be going over is romance because it's my favorite, obviously. So the first book I read that was a romance was The Three Swedish Mountain Men by Lily Gold. This is a reverse harem. It's about a girl who goes to Sweden and she gets into a car accident, and then there's a snowstorm, so she gets stranded, and then these two hot Swedish men come along and they take her home with them, and then there's the third guy who's also there waiting for them, and yeah, fun, sexy things happen. I don't know how else to describe this. I think that's all you need to know. Oh, and there was forced proximity, which I love. I love that trope. This was a 5-star read. It was really cute, really hot, and I love Eli so much. Which one is he? He's the one on the bottom right. I love him. He's so playful and sweet, and I'm just obsessed with him. Okay, that's all I really need to say about that one, because I read it at the beginning of the month, so I don't have as much to say. My thoughts aren't as fresh. Okay, so next one was You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Ekwaki Emisi? I don't know. I know I said that wrong. Sorry. But I love the cover of this book and I love the title. That's why I read it. But I didn't love the book. I gave it 3 stars. So I'm just gonna read what it says on the back of the book as the description because I don't want to say too much. I don't know how much it would be considered spoiler. But okay, this is about a young woman seeking joy while healing from loss. And yeah, I feel like that captures what this book is about pretty well. Okay, so her lover Jonah died, and she has been struggling with dating and sex and relationships ever since. And she meets this guy who makes her feel alive, but the guy is forbidden. I can't say why because I think that would be the spoiler, but I think that's enough to give you an idea of what this to see if you're interested. And it took me forever to read this book, even though it was only 288 pages. Most books I read are longer than that, and I get through them quicker. I just felt like it really dragged at times, but I did like the overarching storyline, the healing after loss and learning to put yourself back out there. I think that's an important storyline, and it's something a lot of people go through, so I thought that was good, and it was well written, and I did like the forbidden romance aspect. And the next book I read was Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey, and I secretly like this. Why does everyone hate this? This is the first book in Tessa Bailey's newest series. I think it's called A Vine Mess, and it's a contemporary romance about Hallie, who she has had an unrequited crush on Julian for years, but then they meet up again at this vineyard, and he doesn't remember her, so that's embarrassing because she's in love with him. And I don't know. I just went to this book expecting to hate it because of the rating. 3.33 on a Tessa Bailey book. That is wild. I feel like that's so low and she's so popular. So I was the only reason I read it was because I was curious as to why everyone seemed to hate it. And also the cute cover drew me in. But yeah. But then I was pleasantly surprised. It's actually really cute and I don't get all the hate at all. The romantic in me loves secret admirer plots, which this one has. The only thing I didn't like was during the first on-page interaction, she was speaking, and he was just looking at her boobs instead of her face, which was just icky. But other than that, I thought this was actually quite adorable. So, I mean, it's not groundbreaking, but it wasn't a bad book, and I do feel like the hate is a little unwarranted. Okay. And then I read The Right Move by Liz Topper, and this is the right book, guys. This is the best book I've ever read. Infinite stars. That's my rating. Infinite stars. It's a sports romance about a basketball player and his sister's best friend. Okay, the best friend, her name's Indy, by the way, and she needs a place to stay. And then Ryan, he's the hero. He reluctantly agrees to let her stay in his apartment, and they end up fake dating to prove to his GM that he's not as cold as the GM thinks, and so that she doesn't have to go stag to a wedding that her ex is going to be at. And I expected to like this because of the tropes, it's Grumpy Sunshine, Opposites Attract, Roomies, fake dating, I like all those tropes, but nothing could have prepared me for this book. I will never forget this book. or these characters, like, they're so fleshed out and real and flawed, but so lovable, and, like, I just love them. Okay, like, if you wanna know more about the characters, like, Indy is this emotional social butterfly who struggles with being alone, and Ryan is her opposite, he's a loner, but he has so much love to give! Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. Like, the things Ryan does for her every day, like, he makes her iced coffee every morning, he forces himself into public, like, atmosphere for her sake, because he's a loner, he doesn't really like to go outside because too many people, too many fans. And then he learned sign language to communicate with her deaf father, and he like taking care of her plans for her when she's not home. Like, so many things. I could go on and on about things he did for her, but like, I'll stop right there. You guys should read this book and experience everything yourself if you haven't already. I didn't read Mile High, but I'm gonna go back and read it because I love this so much. And if the author can create this, she can do no wrong in my eyes. Like, I need that book. And I think Caught Up comes this month, which is the third book in the series, and I can't wait. I need to read everything this lady has ever written. Okay. And then I read Ciao for Now by Kate Bromley. This is a standalone contemporary romance about a woman who's doing a fashion design internship in Rome, and she goes to a cafe and ends up breaking a guy's laptop. And he dislikes her from the jump, and she ends up disliking him as a like because he dislikes her. And then it turns out that this guy is her mentor's son, and they're living in the same house. So awkward. But this was a 5-star read. Like, I don't have much to say about it because it's not very heavy. It's very cute, fluffy read. But I enjoyed the witty banter, and like overall, I really loved it. Like, there were some boring parts, but overall, I thought it was really good. And then I read Ricochet by Krista and Becca Ritchie, which is the second book in the Addicted series following Lily and Lo. She's addicted to sex. He's addicted to alcohol, and I'm addicted to this series. Like, okay, so this is about them trying to navigate a relationship while battling their addictions. And this book, it focuses a lot more on Lily's addiction, which I liked because sex addiction isn't something that's talked about very much. And like I feel like almost anytime someone talks about addiction, they're talking about drug or alcohol. So I liked a new perspective, and I feel like I learned a lot in this book about sex addiction and how it can affect people and how hard it is for people to overcome their addictions. Like, it was just a very interesting read. And I also love Rose and Connor. They're side characters, but the bits we get of them are so good. Like, I already know their book's gonna be my favorite. I have no doubt in my mind. I'm already obsessed with them. Like, their intellectual sparring, the way he can't contain his grin around her, it's so cute. And the way he's always there for her, and like just watching her slowly lower her walls for him, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. And like, this is just such an easy read. Also, like, the writing flows really well, and it's just quick and easy. And I want to read more books from them, the sisters, after I finish the Addicted Calloway books, because the writing just really worked for me for some reason. So I'm interested to see what else they got. The only dislike is the way Rake speaks to Daisy and her friends. Like, he is 22, if I'm remembering correctly, and she's 15, and he was talking to her about her sex life and making suggestive gestures and sounds around her, and it just like grosses me out because she's a child and he's an adult, and he's just as vulgar when speaking to her friends, also who are like around the same age she is, and it just made me a little uncomfortable. And I also didn't like Lily and Lo's reaction to this situation that happened with Rake. He was uncomfortable because a girl snuck into his room and like filled him up while he was trying to sleep, and they like made fun of him for being like uncomfortable about it, which I don't think was okay. But other than that, I love this book. I love this series so far. And then I read My Fault by Mercedes Ron, which it was the last book I read of the month, and it was also last in like if I made a tier ranking, this would be last. I did not like it at all. It's my fault for not DNFing this, honestly, because I knew before we even hit 100 pages that this was like not the book for me, but I hate DNFing. So I kept going, and that's my fault. Like, I'm honestly embarrassed for how excited I was to read this. Like, I was checking my library catalog daily, waiting for the English version of this book to become available, and I was the first person on the whole list when it did. And I read it immediately, and what's wrong with me? Because I did all that only for this book to be like the worst book I've read all year, and I really did not like. I hated it, honestly. If I'm gonna be honest, I hated it. I hate saying that about books, but I hated this. It was a 1-star. It's about a girl named Noah. Her mom marries this rich guy from LA, and then they end up moving there to be with him. And this guy has a son named Nicholas, and Noah and Nicholas both resent each other for like basically, honestly, their hate for each other is a little like for no reason, I guess, when they meet. And like now they're forced to live with each other, even though they hate each other. So that's fun. The tropes, it's like enemies, lovers, step siblings, virgin heroine. Um, I don't know. I only read this because I saw the trailer for the movie, and my cousin, we were like, oh my gosh, we need to watch that together. But I don't like to watch things without reading the books first if they have a book, so I went to read the book first. And like, I hated this so much. I don't even want to watch the movie anymore. That's how upset I am. Probably still will, but yeah. Like, I don't even know where to start with my complaints. Like, okay, no, actually, I'll start with the heroine Noah. She was so annoying. I could not stand her. Like, she was the biggest brat. The way she spoke to her mother, who tried to do literally everything to make her happy, but just made me mad. And she was so rude to her for no reason. And she's also very hypocritical. Like, she would judge Nick for being violent, and then she would punch him in the jaw and slap him because he insulted her. It was just like, what? But then she'd like scold him for being violent when he punched someone. Like, you're literally the violence. You are literally violence. It was just hypocritical. And then Nick wasn't very likable either. He was very rude, and he was just very hot and cold. And he's also a misogynist, so that's awesome. And then my third complaint, it's very cliche. Like, every cliche you could possibly come up with, like illegal street races, not like other girls, underground fighting, etc. Like, they're all here. So it just wasn't really anything original or new at all. And then fourth complaint, though it's very repetitive. Like, they had the same conversation at least 3 times in which they were like, we're gonna avoid each other, and then proceeded to seek each other out and speak like 2 pages later, which was just annoying. Because what was the point of having that conversation so many times and then proceeding to talk to each other? Like, why was that needed? It was just stupid. And just the writing felt very juvenile for me, and I could see that right off the bat. But I hate DNFing. And another thing, this is a small thing, but Nick's best friend's name is Lion. Oh my gosh, every time I read that, I had to like giggle to myself because I was like, what is that? Like, I don't know. I just didn't like much of anything about this. Like, the only thing I kind of like was that his nickname for her was Freckles, which that's kind of cute, but that's it. Nothing else about this book or these characters was cute. Okay, now we're done with romance. We're getting to fantasy, which I have a lot of fantasy romance, so I guess we're not done with romance, but anyway. The first book I read that was fancy was What the Hex by Jessica Clare. This is the second book in the Hex series, and it follows. It follows Willem and Penny, and he is this grumpy warlock who has been prohibited from casting spells for 20 years. I think it was 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. And his old mentor is using magic against him, and Willem wants like magical protection, so he needs a familiar to cast. And Penny takes the job because she is like desperate for the opportunity to become a familiar, and she doesn't care that if anyone finds out, they're both gonna get into a lot of trouble because he's prohibited from doing that. It's Grumpy Sunshine also. This was a 4-star read. The reason it wasn't 5-star is because it was a carbon copy of the first book in the series. Like, they both had a grumpy warlock falling for their sunshine-esque familiar, and I just wanted something a little different. But that's what the author likes writing, so that's okay. It just wasn't like I wanted something new, personally. And also the smut scenes came at the worst time. Like, for example, there was an intruder in the house at one point, and they started to do smutty things, and I was like, I couldn't even get into the smut because I was like, guys, there's an intruder. Like, am I the only one worried about this? Like, it was just so random and weird. I don't know, but I did love the squirrel. She has a pet squirrel, and I love it. This book is like cute overall, but there were just some little things that bothered me. And Willem was so precious after they got together. He was just so soft and so sweet. And what else can I say about this? Reggie and Ben from the first book made a bunch of appearances, and I love seeing them. So that was also one of the positives of this. And then I read A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas, or Mass. I've always said Maas, but I think it's actually Mass. Anyway, this is the third book in the ACOTAR series. I put this off for so long because it is so long. And I thought it'd drag and be boring, but I wasn't at all, and I actually loved it. I wasn't bored once. It was the best book in the series, in my opinion. It was 5 stars. The war made everything so intense, and like the war plotting and everything, I loved that aspect. And Farrah's scheming in the beginning, oh my gosh, it was everything. I was rooting for her. I don't care that Tam's like, it was not good for Tam. Because like seeing her be all sneaky and stuff, like it was, I love like scheming characters, so I really like that. And like Feyre's a lot more smart and cunning than I originally thought. If I'm gonna be honest, like this was my favorite side of Feyre in this book. Like in the beginning, the first 100, 150 pages or something like that. That was awesome. And I love the romance between Rhys and Feyre and Cassie and Nesta. I'm so excited for the book. And we finally have LGBTQ plus characters. The other books were very much straight. That was one of my complaints. And this one did have a little more diversity, so that was good. We could still use some more, but you know, at least we have a little bit. And then I read Finale by Stephanie Garber. This is the final book in the Caraval trilogy, which is such a great trilogy. I loved all the books. Every single one was 5 stars. If you're unfamiliar with the series, it's like this fantasy series with very heavy romantic elements. This book is dual point of view, POV. I meant to say. We get Scarlet and Tel's point POV, and I just love being back in Scarlet's point of view. Like we didn't get her in the second book, but I love her so much. She's so cute, and I feel like Caraval was my favorite, and part of it was because we were in Scarlet's mind. So yeah, I like that, and we basically get to watch the sisters deal with the Fates, which are these powerful magical bad guys known for terrorizing humans, and we also get their romances with the Santos brothers. And it was 478 pages, but it did not feel like that at all. Like I flew through this. I love Stephanie Garber's writing. It's so beautiful and just beautiful. I don't have another adjective. I was trying to think of one, but I can't. It's just magical. Oh, there's one. Magical and beautiful. Oh my gosh, I love Scarlet and Julian together. I'm a lot more invested in their romance than Tel and Dante's, just because Dante spent so much time fighting their connection, whereas my boy Julian embraced it and never hesitated to show Scarlet how much he cared. He's my favorite, by the way. He's my favorite character. He's so flirtatious and fun and loving, and I love him. The only thing I disliked is we didn't get to play in Caraval, which, like, I love the game element of it, and it's literally what the series is called. So I was hoping that'd be a part of this book too, but it wasn't. But still, this was really good, and I really liked it. And last thing I would say, I'm very intrigued by Jax. He's like, just anti-heroes just do it better. They make the best love interests, and so I can't wait to watch him fall in love in his trilogy. What's it called? Once Upon a Broken Heart. I'm gonna start that very soon, I hope. And then I can tell you guys all my thoughts. I'm sure I'm gonna love it because Stephanie Garber can do no wrong. And then I read Burn by Lisa Carlisle. And I'm begging you not to judge this by the cover. It is one of the worst covers I've ever seen. But the book is actually really good. It was amazing. I loved it. 5 stars. It's a paranormal romance about a rock star vampire on the run and the shapeshifter who has been sent to hunt her down. It's enemies to lovers, and the angry, snarky banter really delivered after she found out his motives. I loved it. And the action scenes were really good. Also, they had me on the edge of my seat. It was really good. Don't judge it by the cover. And then I read A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova. I actually listened to the audiobook for this, and it was my first time ever listening to a dramatized audiobook, and I actually really liked the experience. It was so like immersive and fun. It was really cool. It's the first book in the Married to Magic series, and I think they're all interconnected standalones. I'm not completely sure about that, but I think they are. And in this world, elves come into the human realm to take a queen that will make their seasons basically, and like their magic makes seasons like spring. I don't know. And the female main character, Luella, is the one who is taken to Midsgate, which is the elf world, and she's taken by the Elf King, who is very cold and aloof, and she's forced to marry him, and she's not happy about this because she's the only like healer in her town, and the people rely on her, so she's trying to figure out how to get back there. So it's like arranged forced marriage, like grumpy hero kind of like dark. He's not too dark, I guess, but he's aloof. This is a Beauty and the Beast and Hades and Persephone retelling, so you get like a 2-in-1. Isn't that fun? And I really like this. I gave it 4 stars. I loved Luella. She's a very easy character to root for. She's like very dutiful and smart and headstrong, and I really liked her. And the world building was also really good. Like Elise Kova spent a lot of time describing how the elf world works, like what their traditions are and what the rules of elvish magic are, and we learned about how the world came to be and everything. So I thought that was really good, and the smut was good. And Luella has a pet wolf named Hook, and their relationship was so wholesome and cute. I loved it. I love pets in books. The only reason it's not a 5 is because sometimes it was boring. Like, there were some parts where it dragged, but overall, this was amazing, and I highly, highly recommend it. I really liked it. And then we get into the sci-fi genre. So the first book I read was Cinder by Marissa Meyer. It's the first book in the Lunar Chronicle series. It's a Cinderella retelling with Cinderella being a cyborg, and it's set in like a futuristic China, which I just think that's such a cool concept. Like, the whole idea was really cool. And the main villain is like the queen of the lunar people who live on the moon. Lunar, amazing. They live on the moon. Get it? So the premise is like so cool. I was so excited to read this, and like, this is a genre that I usually struggle with. I don't know, like, because science was my worst subject in school, so reading like sci-fi books, sometimes I get a little lost. But this is YA, so it wasn't too bad. But and this, I don't even know what genre this is. Like, it's like sci-fi, but it's also dystopian and fantasy and romance. Like, there's like a mix of everything, and it is so good. Like, not only was the concept cool, but it was also executed really well, and the main character was really easy to root for. The romance was cute. The story was creative and unique. I I have no critiques. I really like this. And then I read Glitches by Marissa Meyer. This is a Lunar Chronicles short story that takes place before Cinder chronologically, but I ended up reading it after. I don't know if you're supposed to do that, but it doesn't really matter. It tells the story of what happened after Garen first brought Cinder home with him, and we get to see him developing the plague. It was a 5 star. It was an interesting read. Like, I liked getting to meet Garen firsthand after him being mentioned so much in Cinder. And it was interesting to see how Adri, she's the evil stepmother, how she behaved before his passing. Which, that's not a spoiler, by the way. It's not a spoiler that he said, because you find out very early on in the first book. And then I read Feed by M.T. Anderson, which is a dystopian sci-fi romance. This book is basically a social commentary on American consumerism. It's a very unique book. I like the way it's written, and the dialogue is like anything I've ever read before. It's a very interesting read just because it's so unique. But the romance, I will say, is sex. Like, Violet, the female main character, she was just so much better and smarter than anyone else. At any time she expressed interest in Titus, I was like, why? Because, no offense, but he's just so dumb and ignorant compared to her. Like, it was just not a good match, I feel like. Like, she could do so much better. Like, she's Barbie, and he's just Ken, except worse, because he didn't support her half the time. Like, all their scenes together were just her teaching him things, because she's so much smarter than him. And I was like, why are they even together? Because, like, she can never, like, talk to him intellectually, you know? But I still recommend this, though. It is good. Like, I gave it 4 stars. Not for the romance element. Like, I just like how unique and creative it is. And then I read thrillers. I read 3. So the first one I read was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. It's about a girl who, she lived in a supposedly haunted house when she was younger, and her father wrote a book about their experiences on it, and she ends up moving back into the house as an adult, and some spooky stuff happens. So this is like a mix between horror and thriller, I would say. And I love Riley Sager, and I've heard very good things about this book, so I thought I'd like it, but like, nothing about this really worked for me, honestly. I gave it 3 stars. My sister gave it 3.75. She also read it. I'm just not a big fan of haunted house storylines in general, because it's been played out, and like, it's just unoriginal. I I feel like, how many haunted house stories have we read and seen, you know? But I just want to give it a shot because he wrote my favorite thriller ever, which is Lock Every Door, and so I was like, I have to try it. But I didn't like it. I didn't think this brought anything new to the haunted house idea. It just felt really slow and repetitive, and I also guessed the plot twist, so the conclusion was kind of disappointing. I did like that we got to read the father's book in addition to experiencing the house with her as the adult. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but like, it was like 2 stories for the price of 1, which, that was cool. And the book also glows in the dark, which, that was awesome. I turned the lights off so many times just randomly to see it glow. And then I read The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I don't know. But this was a mix between murder mystery and mythology, which I love. That concept. Greek mythology is so interesting to me. And it's about this group therapist named Mariana. Her niece ends up calling her and tells her there's been a murder and that her best friend has been missing for days. And then Mariana goes over to Cambridge, which is where this all happened. And then she goes there to support her niece. And when she goes, she notices the police are convinced it's the victim, or no. They are convinced that the guy who killed her was the guy she was sleeping with. But Mariana doesn't think it was him. She thinks it's the Greek tragedy professor, so she tries to find evidence to convict him. And I was convinced. Halfway through, I was like, this is going to be a 3-star. Like, this is going to be another disappointing thriller. And that ended up being a 5 because that ending, all my complaints about this book vanished at the plot twist. Like, the plot twist and the ending were so good that I forgot everything I disliked about this book. Like, I forgot that the dialogue was somewhat unnatural. And I forgot that this was the least thriller ever. Like, I don't think this should be classified as thriller. Like, it's just a mystery to me. Like, there was none of the heart beating quickly or like anxiously turning the page. It's just not thrilling despite the subject matter, which you'd think would make this a thriller, and like that's fine, but I just would like it just felt like just a regular mystery without the thrill. If that makes sense. But like when I got to the twist, that did not matter. Like I read thrillers, even though I really wouldn't consider this a thriller. I read them for the twist, and this twist shook me to my core. Like I suspected the killer at one point, and then immediately was like, "No, it's not them," and never thought about it again. And then it ended up being them, and I was so shook. And there were like clues about the killer and the motive, but I was ignoring all of it because I was so sure it was someone else. And I love when we get clues and a twist that actually makes sense, and it's just not just random, So that was good because after I read it, I just kept thinking about like all the clues I ignored and. Like, a lot of people said the twist was obvious. I don't know. It wasn't for me. Like, I was genuinely so shocked. Like, let me know if you predicted it. It was like, was I the only one who's fooled? Like, I've been thinking about this book constantly, just because it's this. Like, trying to remember everything the villain characters said and did that hinted at them being bad. Like, it was just, I can't stop thinking about it. And then I read The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This is a mystery thriller about a woman who is watching the house across the lake. Type of reference. Through her binoculars, and she sees this couple fighting, and later in the night she hears a woman scream, and she goes over to the house, and the husband says she's not there. And so she calls the woman, and the woman doesn't answer, and this woman is missing. And the main character is convinced that her husband killed her. This was a 4-star. It could have been a 5 if I was actually in the mood for a thriller, maybe. Because at the time when I read this, I really wasn't. Like, I was being forced to read this. Well, not really forced. I forced myself to read this because my sister is obsessed with it, and she's been begging me to read it for like a month. So I finally did, and like I don't know. I just wasn't really in the mood for it. Though I wanted another romance. But I do appreciate that Riley Sager tried something new with this. He does. Like, this is the 5th book I've read by him, and it does something that none of his other books do. I can't say what it is because it'd be a spoiler, but I like when authors try new things, and he did that. And the mystery was good. Like, after I started, I wanted to keep reading because I wanted to know what happened to Catherine. So, like, it succeeded in hooking me. But the twist did fall flat for me. It didn't shock me to my core like Maidens did. So, just, yeah, 4 stars. And then that was the last book I read. So, yeah. I guess that's the end of the video, basically. Let me know what good books you guys read. Let me know if I should read something next month that's really good. Okay, that's all. Oh, and please comment down below if the Maidens twist got you or not, because am I the only one? Am I the only one? I don't know. It really got me, guys. Please tell me that I'm not the only one. Okay, that's all. Comment down below. I already said this, but I'm like getting flustered now because I never know how to end a video or to start one, really. But comment down below if you read any of the books, if you like them, your opinions. Yeah. Okay, bye. See you next month.